and listen. Crazy thing. All right. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It's the Sound Bites Album Mode Live. We're talking about the music, the culture, and the internet, and how those three things intertwine to create the music culture that we have today. My name is DeMar Grant, a.k.a. King Grant, a.k.a. The Bunny. And I'm here with my esteemed co-host, co-creator, Adriel Smiley, adrielsmiley.com, Adriel Smiley Official, the Godfather,
Yep.
Mr. Smiley.
Yep.
Adriel, we are back.
Unfortunately.
We we are fortunately back, but unfortunately covering the Diddy saga.
Part 3.
Part 3 of the Diddy discourse has happened. P. Diddy, a.k.a. Sean Combs, a.k.a. Puff Daddy, a.k.a. P. Diddy, or a.k.a. Puffy.
AKA No Diddy.
A.k.a. No Diddy, a.k.a. Puff, is... like how do we even start this? Let's start it with this. Puffy's house in Miami, and then it was on the East Coast and the West Coast. He has 3 different places. Got raided.
LA and Miami homes were raided. Yeah.
Got raided by Homeland Security. We're not even talking about local PD. We're talking about federal agencies running up in people's houses. Okay. His sons were arrested.
Yep.
They were running through basically his entire house
Yep.
to find who knows what they're trying to find. There has, again, in who is it? Cassie's allegations were things that were recorded
Yep.
that were happening to her. So these recordings are possibly part of this investigation / raid. And just overall, in general, the things that have been alleged against P. Diddy, Puff Daddy, Puffy, I would say are warranted of a raid. And that's how you get a warrant.
I think this is probably going to be the moment people remember the most from this whole Diddy saga.
Yeah.
Unless there's a chase or he gets his OJ on.
He was spotted at the Miami airport, right? So
I think there's still time for a chase.
yeah, it's still on the table.
But I think this will be the moment everyone remembers because I think this was the moment it became real to a lot of people. It's sad to say, but I think 4 months ago when Cassie accused him of sexual assault and sex trafficking, I think a lot of people believed it, but it was still, we'll wait and see. And credit to Diddy. He basically didn't say much. He denied the allegations like everyone usually does. And he had been active on social media,
which is crazy.
Which was wild to me.
Yeah, that's insane.
And I was following Diddy before everything happened. He was one of my few social media follows because he's always close with his family. And once it happened, I said, I can't unfollow him now. I got to stick around.
I got to see it through, my boy.
And to see him posting on social media as if nothing was going to happen to him, as if everything was fine, that was pretty wild to me. But I think that let's fast forward into the next thing that goes with this raid. You talked about seeing him at the airport. That there's a close up. It's so low resolution, but you can see his lip kind of curled up, like he's been crying. And the rumor is that he's fleeing, to Cape Verde.
Yeah, there was that his private jet had been flying to Cape Verde. Whether or not he was on it was a source of speculation. But then there was also the footage of him at Miami Airport. So it appears that he is still in the United States. Why the private jet was flying away, nobody fully knows yet. There is, I would say, speculation that there may have been evidence on the plane and flown to Cape Verde, is a place that I believe doesn't have an extradition treaty with America. So even if it wasn't a physical personal fleet, there was a fleeing of some sort of material, possibly.
Is that where Russell fled to as well? Where did Russell?
He's in Bali.
Bali, okay.
Yeah.
I'm like, make sure I know where my flee countries are.
That also doesn't have an extradition.
But I think there was probably people on that plane, and maybe Diddy's doing the thing that you see in the movies where, okay, make sure the kids are safe first.
Even though that is children to get arrested.
But I think why him fleeing is so important because that blueprint, this is crazy that we're saying that blueprint, but Russell Simmons is the modern version of that blueprint where you get in some hot water, there's some legal action towards you, it's some unresolved, some you get to an agreement, we'll call it, and then you disappear. And that has been what Russell has been doing this whole time. And why I bring that up is because there was that clip a few weeks ago of Usher hanging out with Russell in Bali, and everyone was kind of iffy about that. Usher has ties to Diddy. If you want to do the math on that, you can. But I think this is different from the Steens. Because Diddy's a Steen.
Yeah.
That's just what it is. Diddy is one of the Weinsteins, one of the Epsteins.
Yeah.
He's a distant cousin, but he's one of the Steens.
He's Disteen.
Did Steen. And I think that seeing how they handled it, they maybe wish they handled it like how Russell did. And I think that is what I'm seeing from Diddy's behavior is he said, I don't want to end up in a jail cell. I don't want to end up dead. This is kind of the next move for me. I just hope that there's some way that they could stop him. That's all I really hope for.
Yeah. I would say that when the federal government is on your ass, they're on your ass.
Yes,
like
yes.
they're you don't just get to walk around freely for an extended period of time. When again, Homeland Security, Homeland Security deals with terrorism, bro.
Diddy's a terrorist.
Like Homeland Security is like, this person is a menace to society. We probably need to figure out what the fuck is going on here. So I think that Diddy is going down. I would say that he's going down.
Is he though?
I think he's going
if
down.
he pulls a Russell, is that really going down?
Is he gonna flee?
He's definitely gonna flee.
You think he's gonna flee?
100%.
What was there was a third beat to this entire situation.
Yes, he sold Revolt to an anonymous buyer. That is the writing on the wall.
That
right
brings
there.
Flea to me.
Yeah.
That's Flea to me.
It's giving Flea. It's giving Flea. So when you put those three things together, and the thing that I think is so funny is I think we have such this separation between what we see on TV in the movies and what's capable of being real. This is very much giving Marty Bird in Ozark, very much giving Narcos. We've seen this before. The feds are coming to raid you, get your plane juiced up, get all your money together. So what's the next step? get to the airport. Okay. Now we've seen times it goes wrong in media and movies like Queen and Slim, where it didn't go so well.
Yep.
But Diddy has, I'll say, a bit more money than them. So I don't think that they're going to be able to catch him, if I'm being honest.
Okay.
Diddy's been doing this for a long time. I feel like he kind of has an upper hand on them, as in he's probably thought about this. Yeah. But that's my only one, because I don't know if he'll actually serve jail time. We talked about it on Diddy Part 2. If that's going to happen. I would like that to be the case. But ultimately, even if he's not going to serve jail time, I want him to be the whistleblower. I've said it before. I'm saying it again. I want Diddy to be naming names. And if anyone follows me on TikTok, you're going to see me in someone's comments just commenting names.
Yeah.
This is that right here. All I want Diddy to name names, whether it's Meek Mill, Usher, Chris Brown, Cuba Gooding fucking Jr.
Yeah, he's also tied into
I just want him to name names. That's all I want.
Yeah, me too, because things like this, these like sexual assault allegations, these rings that allegedly is associated with Diddy, it's not one person.
No.
It's never just one person, crystal ball, mastermind, orchestrating everything. It's actually a cabal of like people. Diddy seems to be the most visible and the most, I would say the most like exposed of all the people that's associated with this. But there was other people, Cassie also mentioned other people in her lawsuit. I would believe that if Cassie is naming other people and then also understanding these things do not happen just like with one person.
Exactly.
There's more people involved.
100%.
Right? Just like with R. Kelly, it wasn't just R. Kelly. No. He had a whole fucking district of people operating.
Family too.
Running this entire shit, right? So I do want Diddy to get captured and I want him to name the people.
I want that.
Names.
I want that too. And one thing I do think that why that is unlikely is because I think there's a bit of a Venn diagram of people who knew this was going on and people who were involved with it. And I think that there's going to be some finger pointing if someone does try and say, oh, by the way, did you guys know so-and-so was doing this? It's going to be some shaming and finger pointing of, oh, so you knew this was happening the whole time and you didn't say anything.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where the law of the industry is in a tough spot. Someone like 50 Cent has been making fun of Diddy for a decade plus, every chance he gets. And I think he's in a power position where Diddy has nothing on him, clearly. He's not scared of Diddy. But not everyone's 50 Cent. There are some people who are definitely scared of Diddy, even in this state. Yeah. And my thing is, will that change? I want to see, will that change? Will people get more brave and say, okay, he can't hurt me from Cape Verde. So
yeah,
because
will that happen? There's even the rumors, allegations of blowing up, Kid Cudi's car. Allegations of him killing other people to keep them quiet and shit like that. So it's not like record label producer on the run due to sexual assault allegations. No, it's way darker, way darker than that. The scale of it is also much larger than I think it initially presents itself as being. So I'm interested on how much further it goes. Again, when the feds are on your ass like this, when they're coming into run up in your house, like, it's serious. And people don't just run up in your house like that. You know what I mean?
I think the difference too is that this was a tweet someone had that's funny, but I think there's some truth to it. Of if Diddy couldn't save himself with his $1 billion, how is Tory Lanez going to fend with his 1,200? And I think that is where I think of this as as powerful he is, as rich as he is, it couldn't save him. Yeah, it couldn't save him, couldn't protect him, couldn't stop him from quote unquote getting caught, them finding him. So I think that there's a little bit to that. The last thing I'll say before we get into some juicier news, is Andre Harrell. Andre Harrell was Diddy's mentor. Yeah. He passed a few years ago. I do wish Andre Harrell was around, and I would love to hear what he has to say about this. On either side, honestly.
I think he would defend Diddy, to be honest.
Well, here's my thing.
Those dudes definitely defend each other.
I think that Diddy didn't. This is learned behavior, and I'm not saying it started with Andre Harrell. I'm not insinuating that, but it was Andre Harrell, one of those people who was involved or complicit from the beginning, because he brought Diddy into this business at 17 years old, and to see kind of your mentee turn into this or become this person.
Yeah.
I would love to hear what he has to say, but of course he probably wouldn't give us a comment.
Yeah.
But that's it. We can move on to the good
Oh,
stuff.
one last thing is like this is all happening on like the anniversary of Life After Death.
Yes.
That's pretty crazy. Shout out Biggie Smalls.
I'm sure someone in Homeland Security is a big Biggie fan.
Yeah.
They said, let's get him.
This is for Biggie.
Yeah.
This is for Chris.
Yeah. I think we have to get to the real Twitter news that's been going on. We talked about it a little bit in our review.
Yeah.
Kendrick took some shots at Drake and J. Cole, stepped on Big Sean's release.
Yeah.
Kind of rubbed his foot in it.
Irrelevant.
Future and Metro also took some shots at Drake. But I want to go back a little bit, and I want you to stop me whenever you feel is the right time, because I want to do a little bit of a dive into Kendrick and Drake's relationship.
Okay.
I have a little bit of a timeline here. I think this is important because I'm going to say from the top, I don't think this is Kendrick versus Drake to me. To me, this is Kendrick versus J. Cole. We talked about it on the Future podcast. Drake is in the Michael Jackson spot.
Yeah.
He is number one with a bullet. And
Is he?
He is.
You think so?
He is. I don't think he's the best rapper. We're talking about greatness and what they've achieved.
Yeah.
He's number one with a bullet.
I don't think so. I don't want to derail what you're talking about here, but
he is. I think
I don't think so.
What Kendrick has achieved as a rapper, other rappers have achieved. Other than the Pulitzer Prize.
Not the Pulitzer, though.
That's one prize. But other than the Pulitzer Prize, other rappers have had 5 classic albums, great run of singles, been very popular. No one has done what Drake has done.
Rarefied air, though.
No, it is. But what Drake has done, no one has done. That's even more rarefied air.
But the Pulitzer is something nobody else has done too.
That's great. But
those are two different things. You can't say, what Drake is doing, nobody's done.
But I'm saying just winning one prize and no one else has won doesn't make you the greatest.
But nobody else has it. Nobody else has done it ever. It's just him.
But that doesn't mean he's the only one who's deserving. I think this is from a different time when they weren't looking at hip hop for that prize. So I said I'm happy for him, but I'm not going to give the Pulitzer all the weight that everyone wants to give it.
Okay.
It's very impressive. But like I said, I think Drake is in a class of his own.
He's
where,
1A.
Say it again?
He's 1A.
He's what?
1A.
Who is?
Drake. I would say Drake is 1A to Kendrick's 1B.
I think Drake is in his own category. I'm trying to be objective here. Forget about who you like in your rap politics.
Me too. I am too, actually.
I think what Drake has achieved, no one has even coming close to. There's a list of the top most streamed rappers in the history of Spotify. Drake was in the 90 billion range. Number 2 was at 47 billion. Number 2 is the most successful rapper of the actual physical era. So for you to be twice as popular as number 2 in your field, I think that you're in a space by yourself. Okay. And for me, I think that is part of why Kendrick always shoots at Drake, is because you get more reps shooting for the top guy. He had a time shooting for Big Sean. That was in the past. But it feels more credible shooting for the top guy. Yeah. Now, why I want to go back is this, because I know you were there physically when this happened. Yeah. But I know mentally you were probably in a different space because we're different ages culturally. And that is the beginning of their careers, 2011, Drake and Kendrick kind of coming together. Now, Drake was the bigger mainstream artist first. Yeah. Take Care was in 2011. He already put out his first album. This is basically his first classic album. Kendrick was still underground at this time. Section 80 was in 2011. But Drake said, absolute classic. And Drake says, Kendrick, come on tour with me. You and A$AP Rocky, let's go have a time.
He did it.
Came on the Club Paradise tour. And I think at that time, this is part of where all this beef comes from. Right now they're peers, but at this time, Drake is clearly the one who's up. And why I want to highlight this part is this is I think the era of music that many of the casual fans don't remember very well or weren't really there for, because this was the era where mixtapes did numbers like albums. Yeah. And Section 80 was a mixtape that was doing 500,000 downloads on basically any mixtape site you could think of.
Yeah, it was so popular that they actually converted it into being a full studio album instead of just a mixtape.
Yeah, exactly. And so at that time, even though Kendrick was the underground artist, the big three was already forming then. Yep. There was already an idea of Drake, Kendrick, Cole, and Drake was still at the top, but they were seen as peers. Okay. Let's fast forward now to 2013. Okay. Kendrick Lamar takes aim on Control. Yep. do you remember how you felt about Control and what that meant at that time? And like, yeah, what do you remember about Control?
I remember listening to Control in my house when I was like in St. Catharines, right? I remember listening to it. I remember the diss was like a cataclysm had happened. The way people were talking about it, I was on the internet during this time, right? I'm always on the internet, but during this time, I was really a hip hop internet warrior. I was on the Reddit. I was on the Twitter. Remember hip hop Twitter? Hip hop Twitter was so different back then. But
2013 was the prime.
Yeah, when people were like, writing, they were like writing raps in their as their tweets and shit like. But anyways, when that song came out, that is actually not even technically released. Like it's not actually an official song currently. It was huge because it was like, oh my God, Kendrick is challenging literally everybody on the face of hip hop at this point. When it was Drake, it was A$AP Rocky. I think it was even A$AP Ferg. It was Big Sean. Like
everybody, Mac Miller,
Tyler. Yeah, it was crazy, right? And it was crazy because we're like, holy shit, somebody is finally throwing down the gauntlet because it. Before leading up to this, people were like, "Oh, the guys are kind of a little bit too buddy now. All the people who are big kind of want to collab because Poetic Justice, right? Kendrick and Drake had done Poetic Justice.
Yeah,
they also had done fucking Problems by then, right? So they were like, "Oh, it was sizzling. The beef was sizzling, but it wasn't at like a roast or like it wasn't even being flambéed at that point. And then because they were collabing, they're like, oh, okay, so there's no beef, right? But then when Control came out, it was massive.
Which, as much as I love Kendrick, he 100% ruined that song.
What?
Yeah.
What are you talking about?
If you go back and hear that song now, and like, if you remember when it came out, Kendrick is on his own planet. Like, if this was on the Album Mode podcast, we would have flamed him because Big Sean and Jay Electronica sound like they're rapping on the same song. Kendrick comes in and is not on topic with anything that's going on.
Yeah.
And that could have been a great verse, a great song with him staying on topic.
This is crazy. You're a Kendrick hater.
No. Everyone,
I think you're a little bit.
This is saying you were there.
I was there.
No, at the time, people saying at the time, this was like a normal, like, it's not a hot take, it's a normal take. Maybe it's 10 years later, so y'all forget. But Big Sean and Jay Electronica had a cohesive song that they were doing. And Kendrick said, fuck that shit.
Yeah, I think, I guess I was more of an internet person at this time. I'm like, when it was all people were talking about was the Kendrick verse. Nobody was talking about Big Sean or Jay Electronica like that. They're like, did you hear Kendrick's verse on Control?
Yeah, no, and that's, I think, what led us to where we're at now, where we had a lot of subtle shots going back and forth. Kendrick took shots at Drake during the Hip Hop Cypher when that was a huge thing.
Yeah. Double XL.
No. BT Hip Hop Award Cypher.
The BET Hip Hop was okay.
Hip Hop Award Cypher. Yeah, that was the thing before the Double XL Cypher. Yeah.
Holy shit, I remember.
And they kind of went back and forth taking shots.
Subliminals.
And I think that First Person Shooter was the first real shot. And why I like to bring First Person Shooter is because Drake has been very famous for taking shots that people don't know are shots.
Okay.
And now that we're after the fact, again, we're like, oh, this... Because I don't think when First Person Shooter came out, we thought of it as a shot at Kendrick. Did anyone feel that? Because I don't remember anyone saying that, like, either online or in real life.
Yeah, no, me neither. I think it was just like a cool track. It was a cool track, and then J. Cole was like talking about the concept, the idea of a big three, but it wasn't like somebody was taking a snipe at somebody else. Like, that wasn't really what people were talking about whatsoever.
And the one thing two things that I want to highlight that I think, again, it's so funny because I think J. Cole's taking the major shots on this song more than Drake was, but we don't think of J. Cole like that. And I think that's part of why we hear these lyrics and we're like, it's not anything. Now, J. Cole basically spent his whole second verse talking about how he's the hardest MC. They argue K-Dot, Aubrey, or me. And then he says, the Spider-Man meme is me looking at Drake. I didn't think anything of that at the time. And I thought to myself now, if Drake is saying he's the GOAT and J. Cole saying he's the GOAT, they're completely just excluding Kendrick out of this. And so I look at it now, I said, of course Kendrick felt offended. You're excluding me, and when I excluded you first.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where he came back, talking about there's no big three, it's just big me.
Yeah.
You go down, he says, everybody steppers.
This is on the song Like That, sorry.
Like that was where Kendrick replies. On
Yeah.
first person shooter, J. Cole says, everybody steppers were fuck it then. Everybody breakfast, I'm about to clear up my plate. That's pretty direct. Everybody steppers and everybody breakfast. So we talked about Drake and Kendrick getting each other for all this time. This is the first time that I can remember J. Cole stepping out and putting his, name in the ring and saying, I'm going to get at y'all too. Because J. Cole had taken shots at No Name, but some people say he lost that beef.
He did lose that beef.
J. Cole doesn't lose any beef.
He lost that beef. It was like not even a question. He lost it so handedly it was a joke.
No.
He was like, No Name was like, you don't read books. And he did not respond.
It's J. Cole. It's J. Cole. He didn't lose.
He got cooked by No Name.
He took shots at Kanye, took shots at Lil Pump. So J. Cole has no problem taking shots. But this is the first time he said, Kendrick, I want some of that smoke.
Yeah.
I personally want to see J. Cole and Kendrick go head to head. Because I think those are the two actual best rappers. I think as a rapper, Drake can't hang with those two.
Okay.
Personally, I think J. Cole is the best rapper out of the big three.
I don't think so. I think he would get rolled by Kendrick Lamar.
Rolled?
Yeah. I honestly think you underestimate how good Kendrick Lamar is.
I honestly think you're not outside enough.
I think Kendrick Lamar...
There's no way. Rolled?
Yeah. Okay. Here's my entire scenario when it comes to this idea of big three.
Okay.
Right?
Let's hear it.
I don't even think it's a big three. I think it's legit Drake and Kendrick Lamar, and J. Cole is a rung below. This is something that I've said to so many people, and I haven't found a person that can dispute it. When it comes to being like the largest seller of music or being like the biggest hit maker, right, of hip hop music, just music in general in this space, is Drake, right? The best. Kendrick Lamar is the best lyricist. He's the best when it comes to when he makes concept albums, right? If you really think about it, To Pimp a Butterfly is a concept album. Damn is a concept album. Good Kid, Mad City is a concept album, right? He's critically acclaimed in every sphere. There is not a single person that's like, oh yeah, Kendrick Lamar, whatever, right? He's a better lyricist, better songwriter, right? He's a better storyteller. He makes concept albums. I have not heard a J. Cole concept album yet, right?
Concept album don't mean you rap better.
And then there's also the Pulitzer Prize on top of it, which is literally an award for writing.
No, Kendrick is great,
right? And then there's that. And then for Drake, right? Drake is first of all actually battle tested when it comes to beef, right? He's one of the best hit makers when it comes to beef, just beef. Make a song that's so good that they play in the club, and then also again the ultimate hit maker. So J. Cole is none of these things. These are the core tenets of hip hop. J. Cole is none of these things. His first number one is because he tagged on Drake's track.
You're a J. Cole slander.
Like, what are we talking about? Like, he is not in the sphere. He's not in the sphere of either of them. He's not better at anything in the genre that those two dudes do. He's not.
He raps better than both of them.
He's not a better rapper.
He's a better producer than both of them.
Fine.
Fine. I think as an individual, he makes better solo music than both of them. I think if they all had to do albums on their own, no help, like no features, J. Cole's making the best album out of all three of them.
I don't think so.
He's actually done it. None of them have done that. And I think J. Cole's hit songs are better than Kendrick's hit songs. I don't think everyone wants to hear Humble right now. I can't imagine everyone being like, let's bump Humble right now. I think if you play Get Off My Dick from J. Cole, you're getting a way better response.
I don't think so.
I think Kendrick, to me, why I personally feel like it should be Drake by himself, Kendrick and J. Cole can battle for number 2.
Yeah, give me your rankings of these three people, actually.
Okay, so talking about greatness, I think Drake is the greatest.
Yeah.
And then I would have Kendrick 2 and J. Cole 3.
Okay.
And J. Cole has an opportunity to make some waves.
I don't even think he can jump. How does he jump somebody in the hierarchy? He would have to. Kendrick
he has to come at Kendrick's head. Come at Kendrick's head.
Yeah.
That would do it. And he puts out a classic. I think those two things.
Kendrick has legitimately at least three classic albums.
Kendrick,
at least.
Listen, I hate
To Pimp a Butterfly, Good Kid, Mad City. Those are classics.
No, I'm not saying
one. Like it's a gold. He's a rubber stamp.
I'm not saying they're not classics, but I hate going against Kendrick because Kendrick. I spent thousands of dollars on Kendrick. I've seen Kendrick live 3 times. I'm a huge Kendrick fan, but Kendrick is the one person who we give the most ratings for, who people don't listen to like that, and they don't rock with like that, and it's music. Mm-hmm. So giving so much credit for someone who you don't listen to like that, Kendrick is the only person in music history who we treat like that. You can say someone's talented and they're great. That's fine. But us trying to say someone is the greatest and all of a sudden we don't listen to them, I think is ridiculous.
I don't think so, because how often are you listening to Bach?
And
How much Johann Bach are you listening to? How much Mozart are you listening to?
but the same thing applies to anybody.
I'm just saying, like,
it applies to any. It's like back in the day when it was Jay-Z versus Nas. I said, if you're bumping 10 Jay-Z tracks on one Nas song, don't tell me Nas is the greatest because you won't think that's the right answer. That's all I'm saying. If everyone's Spotify Wrapped comes out, it's always Drake at the top of everyone's Spotify Wrapped, and then everyone's gonna argue Kendrick. It's music. What you're doing is listening to it. So to me, I think Kendrick is extremely talented, but I feel like everyone wants to feel smart and great, and it's a great answer to have. When I'm like, when you're 45 years old, if you're bumping Kendrick on a daily basis, that's fine.
I will be doing that.
You will not be doing that.
I will be doing that.
You're not Kendrick on a daily basis. You'll bump Ice Spice and New Jeans and The Weeknd.
I will be bumping The Weeknd and Kendrick Lamar on the daily when I'm 45 years old.
So it's like, I think Kendrick is great in his own right, but I think that the space between Drake and Kendrick in terms of influence and all the other things is vast. And Kendrick gets the bump from being the anti-Drake. And again, everyone stands behind him as, okay, I don't think Drake is all these things, but Kendrick is.
Right.
So I'll stand behind Kendrick.
Okay.
We can just say the great is flawed because to me, I think sometimes, however, the greatest is sometimes a flawed argument, even if they are the greatest. I think about it with Jay-Z now. At this point, Nas might have more better albums than Jay-Z in total. There's nothing Nas is going to do to overtake Jay-Z as the greatest. Yeah. That's not happening. But by the Kendrick metric y'all are using, Nas could be the GOAT instead of Jay-Z.
Yeah, I would say that when we're talking about the greatest, I would say that I think that Drake probably ranks above Kendrick Lamar because Drake also has like insane artistic influence.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many artists that exist because of Drake, and I feel like when it comes to Kendrick Lamar, there's less of those people.
There's none of those.
It's like Jid and Baby Keem, that's kind of it.
There's a stat that said Drake has given 32 artists their highest charting song ever. That sounds like someone who's the greatest. You know, so to me, that's what I'm saying. Like that, if you use that stat alone of 32 artists, that's a lot of artists. Their highest charting position ever. That person is, to me, should be the greatest if we're being objective. So to put someone because Kendrick honestly is in the morass of everybody else. He's not the
morass of everybody else.
By your metrics, by sales, he's in the morass of everyone else. By in terms of
artistic value,
classic albums, morass of everybody else.
No, come on now. That's insanity. That's actually insane.
He's not the only one with classic album. That's my thing.
He has not released an album that is worse than like a 7.
No, his albums are all great.
He has incredible.
Someone told me literally a year ago that Freddie Gibbs had 3 classic albums. So Freddie Gibbs and Kendrick Lamar are equal? No, that's my point. Your case is classic albums, and I'm saying there are lesser artists that have classic albums.
Listen to me a second. Okay?
Like classic albums alone does not make you the greatest.
Hang on,
he's very good.
That's crazy. That is actually crazy. Here's the thing, okay? When we're talking about who's the best or greatest, right? Best versus greatest is also a different argument, but we're talking about greatest, or we're talking about this top 3 concept.
Yes.
Right? There's multiple factors that go into it, right? If you're a Drake fan, right, or you're a Drake stan, or you're a Drake number oneer, you're like, the amount of sales, astronomical. We're talking about his comparison to Michael Jackson and the Beatles at this point.
Yeah.
Right? His artistic influence as just like his what he introduced to the mainstream or the idea of hip hop, then the people that descended from him is immense.
Yeah.
Right? But his quality of music when compared to his contemporaries, the other 2 dudes, really the other dude.
Yeah.
To me, is not as good, right? Wait, you've been talking about. Hang on, bro. Okay.
The audio must have heard that table slap.
When it comes to like the albums, I would say Drake has "Take Care," something "So Far Gone," "Nothing Was the Same." Those are the staples.
Yeah.
Right. Anything outside of that is literally just not as good as those albums.
Yeah.
Right. And they're not even like, most of them are like not good. Like they're mediocre.
Yeah.
Right. When you come to like Kendrick Lamar is not as a huge seller as Drake. We all know this.
Yeah.
Because it's empirical data.
Yes.
Right. But when we're coming to like the quality of the music, it's surpassing. Like it's the consistency, and then also it's like not even like, oh, this is very good. You're like, no, this is like defining albums of the genre. Like things like Good Kid, Mad City, and To Pimp a Butterfly are like these are defining albums. Like when you're introducing somebody, it's like, hey, I want to start listening to hip hop. Good Kid, Mad City is one of the albums. Like Good Kid, Mad City, Illmatic, and like Reasonable Doubt.
I agree.
Right? Notice how I did not mention a Drake album.
Drake will probably never have an album as good as Good Kid, Mad City.
So that's what I'm talking about. So when you're like, oh, you know, so obviously ahead, I'm like, not really, because like when we're talking about artistic value to the genre, like actually creating masterful works, Kendrick Lamar has the consistency of them, and then the plurality of them is insane.
I don't think anyone can really hang with Kendrick when it comes to how good the art he makes is. I think that every album he does, even if you want to talk about Damn or the Untitled project, every project he puts out is going to be top quality regardless. So that's not even what I'm trying to argue, because I think that's a crazy argument to make that Kendrick Lamar doesn't make high quality music.
Right.
I think that, again, this is my point. He's getting propped up by being the anti-Drake, because I don't think everyone is listening to Kendrick Lamar like how they're talking about his music. I think how you're talking about his music.
But you don't have to listen to it all the time to recognize it's incredible. I love The Weeknd. Yeah. I don't listen to The Weeknd that much.
But what I'm saying is it's music. Well, here's my thought on this.
Yeah.
I think that if Drake was in the morass of everyone else with all the other things, Kendrick would be the GOAT for me by a mile. I think because Drake is the GOAT in all the other things and no one is close to him, that's like Michael Jackson. It's like if there's no Michael Jackson, Prince could be easily the greatest pop star, and we think of Prince as all that. But because there's this other guy who he puts out an album with 12 songs and they all go platinum, you know, what you're doing is not the same. So that's all it is. It's not like Kendrick is because Kendrick, I think, is ahead of everyone else in terms of like his catalog and everything pretty clearly. But I think because Drake has such a space between everyone else and everything else, that's why I say he should be in his own category, because what he's done in hip hop has never been done, probably will never be done. And what Kendrick has done in hip hop is very, very, very impressive. But we have had artists who have been critically acclaimed by every album before. That's happened before. We have never seen an artist who has double the amount of the highest selling artist of all time.
Right.
We have never seen someone who is breaking records in the whole Billboard charts.
Right.
We've not had that. So to me, if you're maybe the best Billboard artist of all time, one of the best selling artists of all time as a rapper, you're the GOAT. Whether I agree with you as a better rapper than Kendrick, I would never say that, because to me, Drake can't hang with Kendrick or J. Cole when it comes to actual rapping.
Right.
I don't think he's in that group. But the space between, and you know what's funny? I'm not a LeBron fan, but the more that this Drake Kendrick stuff comes up, the Drake LeBron comparison becomes even more. No, it really does, because there's so many things where you have a good season and it's a regular LeBron season for you, or you know, okay, I worked hard. I made a couple of conference finals. LeBron's made 10 finals in a row. That's kind of what Drake is, where it's like, okay, the space between him and number 2 is so far. Right. So for me, I feel like Kendrick is doing the right thing, even though I'm calling him out on it in a sense. He's doing the right thing by shooting at Drake. Like, you're only going to get your more props by shooting at number 1.
Yeah.
So I think that is a reason why he's taking all these shots at Drake and not shooting at J. Cole all the time.
Right. For different, I already outlined both reasons. I think that to Kendrick Lamar, to kind of explain his rationality around it's really this one bar where it's like, you know, big 3, like motherfucker big 3, it's big me. I think his rationality is like, to him, he is like almost offended that people are considering the other 2 people in league,
which is wild to me.
I don't think it's. I think
he you know what I'm saying, because he knows why that is.
I think
he's in the music industry.
Yeah, obviously. But I think that he views it from like just like a strictly hip hop space, right? And I think there's a clashing ideals of like, you know,
he's anti-Drake.
I don't think he's anti-Drake though, because they've existed on songs together, so you can't even say that
over a decade ago. Yeah. But he's the anti-Drake. You know what Kendrick Lamar is closer to, and I hate to say this, but this is what it's true. He's closer to Eminem than he is to Jay-Z. Eminem is the artist you know is talented, you know he's good, but you're not bumping Eminem. You can say with your chest, oh, that's a classic album, it's a good album. We've been to mad parties, all of us in this room, where not one Kendrick song has been played, and no one had any problems with that. Kendrick is
yeah, but you play your Kendrick at home.
But
there's gonna be, but this Kendrick has
songs. But Kendrick has songs to play in the party every time.
Yeah,
and again, he's like Eminem. We know he's talented. You know, hear Eminem songs in the party. He's more in that lane. He's more in the Eminem lane. Again, I just think that if we're being really objective, which
Video's down, audio's playing. Okay, go ahead.
oh, I see it here.
Okay, keep going because we're almost done.
The one thing I think everyone's missing, I think, for being objective, what Drake has accomplished in hip hop in general, has never been done, and no one's even close to that.
Right.
Like the example is almost like Wilt playing, in his era, and he's averaging 50. The next person is averaging 25.
Okay.
So it's like until when someone else comes in and a Michael comes in and like surpasses that, then we'll say, okay, someone else is a GOAT. But what Drake has accomplished is, to me, I feel like he should be GOAT like easily. And if you want to put him and Jay-Z and they battle for that GOAT spot.
You really think that he is GOAT hip hop, like GOAT rapper of all time?
I think
this
he
is
should.
Crazy.
I don't think he's the best rapper or makes the best music. I have rappers I like more. But if we're being really honest about,
I think you're putting a little bit too much stock in the numbers. A little bit too much.
It's a little bit too much. It's not even that. To me, it's just the accomplishments, regardless of numbers.
Yeah.
Someone doing this from hip hop he's honestly surpassing all genres from hip hop. So when we talk about the Beatles and what they did when they were at their peak, no one's gonna put down the Beatles ever. What they did, whether you like their music or not, legendary. Drake is on that kind of stuff for hip hop, which is a young genre. And no one has come close to that.
Right. Okay.
So for me, I'm like, if we're being objective, it's like if this guy is doing things we've never heard of, seen, all this kind of stuff, that I feel like he's the greatest.
Right.
Not my favorite, not the best rapper, not the most artistic rapper, not the best albums, but I think that he had this line on 5 a.m. in Toronto, which was 11 years ago, where he says, most number ones ever, how long did it really take me?
Yeah.
And to think that he's 11 years from that, when that was, 4 or 5 years into his career. And I think that what we need to really kind of think about is who's close to him. And I think that the other rappers are aware that maybe you can get close to him while we do an album together or a song together, but we're not actually close in terms of the influence and what we achieve and all that kind of stuff. And that's the difference is if you look at a basketball comparison, LeBron has 4 championships, so does Steph.
Yeah.
So by accomplishments, technically, Steph has 8 finals. They're close in those things.
I agree.
I think with Drake, there's so many things where no one's close to him.
Right. I think that when we're talking about GOAT rapper, your artistic quality, like the things that you actually create, has to be super important. And I think that's the biggest issue for Drake is like, I want to say he has maybe like 11, like close to like 10 or 11.
I'd say he has 13.
Something crazy like that. I would say maybe half of them are not good. Like half of them are not good. So if you're gonna be like the GOAT, your artistic production has to be super, super high. That's why I would say when we're talking about like GOAT, GOAT, I actually would rank Kendrick Lamar ahead of him because the things that he produces, right, that his name is on, is higher quality. It's like the saturation of it is much, much higher than Drake's. Even though I understand like I think Drake's artistic, again, his influence is actually like the further we go in music, just overall, Drake's influence just becomes like enveloping of almost every every artist from North America, right? So I would consider like both of them to me, they're top 10, like very easily, right? I even think you could even talk about them in top 5, right? But for Drake, his biggest thing is so interesting when we talk about Future, because I think Drake and Future have like the same problem. Where like the quality of music that they put out is kind of hit or miss. They definitely have their classics.
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
But their biggest thing is actually the numbers and then artistic influence. But if you're talking about like, if you're going project for project, Drake actually starts to get hurt when you're getting to like the later stage of his career. Like those projects start to hurt him, kind of like Friends. Because I usually liken Drake to Friends a lot.
Yeah.
The later parts of it start to hurt the overall conceptualization of the project, or of the TV show or the artist. Whereas Kendrick Lamar, it's like Seinfeld almost, right? Where it's just like every single fucking season, this is gold, right? It runs for less, runs
But
for shorter,
no fall offs.
but there's no fall off, right?
I'm interested to see how this conversation ages, because I said this to someone a month ago, is that I think 10 years from now, I think Drake will be known as the GOAT, and I don't think it will be a conversation like it is now. Because I think that what he accomplished will just look so big over hip hop.
Yeah.
That it'll be like, okay, there's him and then everybody else. You know, it's almost like Taylor Swift in a sense of like, you can sell really, actually what Adele used to be.
Yeah.
Before Taylor got this popular, it was like, yeah, I was number one, but my number one is, 1/5 of what Adele sells.
You know what? I actually don't even. I can't. We akin Drake to LeBron. I think he's actually more like Wilt. I think he's actually approaching more like Wilt than LeBron to me.
I don't agree with that, because I think that he's playing against so many good players. So I think that he's more like LeBron in the sense of he's in an era where there's so much talent.
Yeah.
So
Here, I'll give my Wilt analogy before we leave, because I think we're about to end. Drake is like Wilt to me because astronomical numbers literally nobody can touch. There's so many records that Wilt Chamberlain owns that people, like, for example, the DeMontis Sabonis record of double-doubles. People are like, oh, yeah, he's broken the record for double-doubles. It's like, actually, it's post-merger.
Yeah. It's the record.
Yeah, it's the record, quote-unquote, because Wilt Chamberlain was doing what better than DeMontis Sabonis was before the leagues even fucking merged. Okay, so he's got to those points where the numbers are so astronomical. You can even you're trying to qualify everything else, in a different way, post merger, since 1982, et cetera, right? And I think that Drake has gotten to that point where it's so large that we're getting to a point now you can't even talk about numbers, because like Drake's like, what do you mean, like you can't talk about. But then you talk about like when he's competing against the people that were his contemporaries, people were beating him, right? People like Bill Russell beat Wilt Chamberlain multiple times, right? Wilt Chamberlain only has 2 rings. Drake, right, but they played for a ton of years. Again, Drake has been going on for 15 years now.
Yeah.
Right. He has a handful. I would say a handful of classics. He has I would say 3, right? But then he's around other people, again, like Kendrick Lamar, where it's literally every time, like, it's pure quality, right? And I would say Kendrick Lamar has Section 80, right? To Pimp a Butterfly, Good Kid, Mad City, right? Where he has these.
It wasn't meant to be.
I know he has these classic albums, but then he has no drop off. Damn isn't really a big drop off. Mr. Mel is not really a big drop off, right? So then he also we're also the fucking Black Panther soundtrack. So there's like shit like that where it's like when you're comparing them at the time when they were competing against each other, like their skills against each other, competing against each other. Yeah. Kendrick Lamar is actually technically better. So that's why I'm like, he's actually closer to Wilt Chamberlain than to LeBron.
I don't agree with that one. But we can wrap up in a bit. I think we've exhausted this Drake versus Kendrick thing.
Yeah.
Kendrick.
Notice J. Cole not even in the discussion.
No. He has to earn his spot. But I do think that this is very much almost like an inside versus outside argument in a sense, because I think that when we had an argument about Future a few months ago, influence was the number one thing you kept bringing up. And that's when I think of what Drake's accomplished, I think of influence more than the numbers. Yeah. And I think Drake's influence compared to Kendrick Lamar's influence, it dwarfs it. Yeah. And I guess that's why I always say he gets the push from being the anti-Drake, is that there's a huge group of people who wouldn't even dare listen to Kendrick over Drake, not even one time. And I think that the influence of Drake of being that guy in hip hop, it's similar to the early 2000s when we had a lot of those pop rappers, the Ja Rules, the Nellies, even the Ludacris. And I think that in some way Drake has a lot of those qualities, but is more respected than them, but not as respected as a Kendrick or a DMX or Nas or someone like that. And so I think that's the draw of both sides of the coin of, if you are more a Mos Def person, you're more a Black Star person, you're rolling more with Kendrick. And I think if you're not on that side, Drake maybe makes more sense to you. And I think that this is where hip hop has become, where we have this divide of we have to choose sides.
I'm on Kendrick's side. You're choosing the Drake side.
I'm trying to be objective.
I don't think so.
I haven't seen Drake in person. I've seen Kendrick multiple times. I'm trying to be objective because, again, I think if this was sports, like, it's kind of like Wayne Gretzky. Anyone knows hockey. Wayne Gretzky, his hold on the record book is insane. And if we take numbers out of it, just go influence. It's like, think of 30 rappers they have their own fan bases where their favorite, their biggest song is a Drake song. Yeah. So to me, I'm just trying to be objective in that way of, if this was sports and someone had this kind of lead on the record book and it was credible. And that's why I think Wilt is not fair, because I'm saying credible as he's more respected than just a Nelly who is more seen as a straight pop rapper. I think Drake has more respect lyrically and just artistically, where, again, in sports, if someone had this lead on the record book, you'd be okay, that's who the greatest is. Yeah,
but just like Wilt was doing these incredible numbers. But if you talk to the contemporaries at the time, you would ask who's better, Wilt or Bill Russell.
Drake is more like Bill Russell.
He's Wilt.
Drake is more like Bill Russell. Honestly.
I don't think it's like because again,
he's winning every year.
No, but in this scenario, right? If like just it's the exact comparison. If you talk to the contemporaries at this time, you'd be like, who is the best rapper right now? Drake or Kendrick Lamar? They would say Kendrick Lamar.
Right? We gotta find a way to do a poll.
And just like with the Wilt Chamberlain thing, like Wilt Chamberlain's doing all this crazy stuff, right? But if you talk to the players at the time, they would be like, Bill Russell's better than Wilt Chamberlain.
I actually disagree with you, and we're gonna find a way to do a poll. But I think if you actually polled rappers who are in the game right now, most of them would say Drake. I think honestly that the fans have a different view than the actual musicians. That's why I think Drake's going to be considered the GOAT in 10 years, because I think as these musicians get older, not in the game as much, they're going to start saying that Drake is the GOAT and that Drake is this and Drake is that. And the fans are going to kind of follow that lead and be like, you know what? Well, if Freddie Gibbs said Drake is the GOAT, well, then Drake is the GOAT. Well, if Bryson says Drake is... And I've seen it already start in the past few years, but that's my prediction for the future. Okay. That's my last words. All right. I think in 10 years, Drake will be considered the GOAT, and this whole conversation will be a fun memory.
Okay, we'll see. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into the Album Mode Live version of Soundbites. We were going to... Oh, you know what? We'll save it. Yeah. There was gonna be some other conversations, but we'll save it for now. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in for the Album Mode Live Soundbites, the part of Album Mode where we're talking about the music, the culture, and the internet, and how those three things intertwine to create the music culture that we have today. Adriel, you're a Kendrick hater, but it's okay. I still love you. Make sure you know yourself and know your worth.
Later days. I hate coming off as a